Okay, so today is soil test day, and I'm going to determine the percentages of silt, sand, and clay in the soil that I'm working with here. So in order to do that, you obviously need a soil sample and a clear container such as this. And what you do is you take a handful of your soil, you put it in your container, you add about a teaspoon of dishwashing liquid, and whatever volume of soil that you put into your container, that represents 1/4, and the remaining 3/4 is water. So you put it all in, you shake it up, and you let it sit for 2 days, and then you can measure the layers of clay, silt, and sand. Everything will settle out. And I will show you that in a little bit. But right now, we're going to take the sample. So I'm going to go in an area right where I tilled up on a second time. And I'm just going to come on in here and take a nice big handful of soil. Check that out. And I'm going to dump it in here. Get it in there. That's about enough for what I'm going to be doing. So here is our soil sample. I'm going to add some water and dish detergent, shake her up, and let her settle on out. And from there, we're going to determine the percentages of each of the constituents. Now that we've got our soil sample, we're going to add a little bit of dish detergent in. You can do a teaspoon for this. I'm just going to give it a little squirt like that. It's going to be good enough for what we're doing here. And then since this is 1/4 of the volume, I'm going to add the rest 3/4 volume of water. So here we go. We're going to add her on up. That gets it most of the way to the top here. Doesn't that look yummy? And then using my special cover here, just a regular dish plate, I'm gonna put her on top and give her a shaking. Well, that's not coming out so well. So what? I lose a little bit. That's okay. This should do it. Like chocolate pudding. Alright, so what we're going to do now is we're going to let this sit for 2 days, and everything is going to settle out, and then we're going to measure the height of each of the layers. Okay, so we're about a day and change later, and everything is settled out in our container here. So now I can see 3 clearly distinct layers in the soil. Between the bottom and roughly here is our sand layer. Between here and here is our silt layer, and between here and here is our clay. And on top of the clay is just all the organics that's settled out from the top. So what you want to do now is you want to measure the depth of each of the layers. So my ruler here is in millimeters, so we're going to be doing it in millimeters. And from the bottom, it looks like bottom is 0 millimeters, so it looks like the sand layer goes up to 22 millimeters. And then from 22 millimeters all the way up to about 46 millimeters, it looks like that's going to be silt. So that's 24 millimeters of silt. And then from about 46 millimeters to 51 millimeters is clay. So 5 millimeters of clay. Even though there's some organics here, the worst case scenario is the organics wouldn't be there at all. And our most important numbers here are the larger numbers on the bottom, so the sand and the silt. So we're going to say 22 millimeters of sand, 24 millimeters of silt, and the rest is going to be clay, giving us a total of 51 millimeters in depth. And we're going to write these numbers down, and we're going to do some math to calculate the percentages of each soil type within the soil column here. Okay, so after we did a little bit of math, we calculated the percentages of each of the constituents. So basically, we had a total depth of 51 millimeters. So to get a percentage of sands, you do 22 millimeters divided by 51 times 100, and that gives you 43%. You do the same thing for silt and clay. So once we have these percentages, then we can use this soil classification chart to get our primary type of soil. At the end of the day, what do these percentages contribute to a soil type? And this chart is readily available online. You just Google image search soil classification chart, and it should pop up. And there's tons and tons of these at various colors and whatnot. But the information that they display is the same. There's your silt over here, there's your sand on the bottom, and then there's your clay percentage over here on the left. So what you do, so since we have 43% sand, so here's 40, here's 45, so 43 is roughly here. And then silt is 47%, here's 40, here's 50, here's 45, so 47 is roughly here. And clay is 10%, which is right over here. And basically what you do is where all of these lines intersect, that is your type of soil. So using my straight edge over here, we're going to draw some lines. So we're going to start with the sand, and it's going to come up this way. That's our sand line. Okay, and then our silt is going to come on down this way, just like that. And then our clay, excuse me, our clay is going to come over here, just like so. Oops, got a little off there. So this 3-point right there. Oh, my pen's running out of ink. There we go. This is the type of soil that we're working with. So the soil that I just sampled and ran this test on is a loam. And this is about the best type of soil you could get. And this is literally by accident that it happened to be this way with this soil test. So I am going to be growing some watermelons in loam. And I'm growing tomatoes in loam, and peppers in loam, onions, lettuce in loam. Even though watermelons typically prefer the sandy loam, this will still work. This is like fantastic. This is pretty much as good as you can get from a soil balance perspective. So our soil is a loam. And that is how you determine the type of soil you're working with in your field or in your garden. You take a soil sample, you settle it out. You can use a mason jar as a pretty common method, just like I showed here, but I didn't use a mason jar. I used a plastic cylinder. And then you can print off this chart, measure your depths of each of the constituents, and then you can determine the type of soil that you're working with. It all works out. The math works out, so you can't go wrong, and you end up with a point just like that. And wherever your point lies within this whole chart, that is the type of soil that you're working with. So hopefully I helped you out here, and hopefully you can go put this to the test and have some fun figuring out what type of soil you're working with. Peace.